I was sitting in a sterile room at Meadowbrook Senior Living, staring at institutional beige walls, when I heard my daughter Linda's voice outside my door. She was talking to my son David, and they thought I couldn't hear them. Just keep her confused for another week. Once the power of attorney processes, we can sell the house and split everything. Then David's response made my blood run cold. Thank God, I'm 3 months behind on the mortgage. That's when I understood. My own children weren't protecting me. They were burying me alive so they could pick over my bones. My name is Evelyn Miller, and I'm 72 years old. For most of my life, I thought I did everything right. I raised 3 children as a single mother after my husband died of a heart attack when I was 43. Tom and I had been married 20 years, 20 good years. He was my high school sweetheart, my best friend, the man who held my hand through 3 difficult pregnancies and never once made me feel like I was doing anything alone. And then, one Tuesday morning, he collapsed in our driveway on his way to work. Gone before the ambulance arrived. 46 years old. I became a widow with 3 kids. Linda was 11, David was 8, and Robert was just 5. I had a part-time job as a dental hygienist and a mortgage I couldn't afford on my own. No substantial life insurance because we were young and invincible, or so we thought. No savings to speak of because we'd been focused on raising our family, not preparing for tragedy. I could have fallen apart. Some days I wanted to, but those 3 little faces looked at me every morning, waiting to see if their world would crumble completely or if somehow I'd hold it together. So I held it together. I took on full-time hours at the dental office, then picked up evening shifts at another practice across town. On weekends, I cleaned houses. I became an expert at stretching $1, at making 1 chicken last for 4 dinners, at buying clothes at thrift stores, and telling the kids they were vintage treasures. I missed school plays because I was working, missed parent-teacher conferences, missed so much of their growing up because I was too busy making sure they could grow up at all. But I did it. Put them all through college. Linda went to Ohio State for business. David got his engineering degree at Cincinnati. Robert bounced around a bit, but eventually finished with a degree in marketing. I helped each of them with their first apartments, their first cars. I was there when they needed me, always. I kept working until I was 65, saved every penny I could, invested carefully with help from a financial advisor at the bank. I bought a small rental property when the market crashed in 2008, fixed it up myself, and rented it out for steady income. By the time I retired, I was comfortable. Not rich, but secure. I owned my home outright in a nice suburb of Cleveland, had a healthy retirement account. The rental income covered my property taxes and gave me a cushion. I'd built a good life from the ashes of tragedy. I'd done everything a good mother was supposed to do, sacrificed, provided, supported. I thought that's what love looked like. Give everything, expect nothing, just be there. I thought my children would appreciate what I'd done for them, that when I needed them, they'd remember, that the foundation I'd built with my blood, sweat, and tears meant something. I was wrong. It started about 8 months ago, subtly at first. My daughter Linda, the oldest at 48, began visiting more often. At first, I was thrilled. Linda had always been busy with her real estate career and her own family. We'd have lunch maybe once a month if I was lucky. But suddenly, she was stopping by twice a week, bringing groceries, asking about my doctor's appointments, insisting on driving me places. "Mom, you shouldn't be driving so much at your age," she'd say with that concerned smile that I now recognize as something else entirely. "What if something happens?" I'd laugh it off. I was 71, not 91. I still drove to my book club, to the grocery store, to visit my sister Patricia across town. I was healthy, active, and sharp as ever, but Linda was persistent. Then my son David started calling more often. David, 45, lived 2 hours away in Columbus and had always been the distant one. We'd talk on holidays, maybe see each other 3 or 4 times a year. Suddenly, he was calling every other day. "Just checking in, Mom, making sure you're okay. You know, at your age, things can change quickly." My youngest, Robert, 42, joined the chorus. Sweet Robert, who I'd helped financially more times than I could count, who'd lived in my basement until he was 31. Even he started expressing concerns. They held a family meeting at my house on a Saturday in March, all three of them sitting in my living room with serious faces as if someone had died. Linda took the lead, as she always did. "Mom, we're worried about you," she began, and I felt my stomach drop. "We've noticed some things. You've seemed forgetful lately. Last week you mentioned you forgot to take your blood pressure medication, and Patricia told us you got confused about what day your doctor's appointment was." I stared at her. "I forgot to take my pill one morning because I was rushing to help at the church bake sale, and I mixed up my appointment because it was rescheduled twice. That's not being senile, Linda. That's being human." But they were prepared. They had a whole list. I'd repeated a story about my neighbor twice in one conversation. I'd left the stove on after making tea. I'd called David by Robert's name once. Normal things, things everyone does. But the way they presented it, you'd think I was wandering the streets in my nightgown talking to lampposts. "We think it would be best if you had some help," David said carefully. "Maybe someone to check on you daily, or perhaps an assisted living facility where you'd have support and wouldn't have to worry about maintaining the house." I felt anger rising in my chest. "I'm not going anywhere. This is my home. I'm perfectly capable of taking care of myself." Linda reached over and patted my hand in a way that felt condescending. "We just want what's best for you, Mom. We've done some research. There's a wonderful place called Meadowbrook Senior Living. It's not a nursing home. It's an active community for independent seniors. You'd have your own apartment, activities, and medical staff on site just in case." I said no, but they didn't let it go. Over the next few weeks, the pressure intensified. They'd call with new incidents to report. Linda found an old carton of milk in my fridge and decided I was unable to manage grocery shopping. Robert claimed I'd sounded confused during a phone call. David sent me articles about elderly people who'd fallen in their homes and weren't found for days. They were building a case. I just didn't realize how far they were willing to take it. In late April, Linda called and asked me to come to her house for dinner. Just a casual family gathering, she said. All the kids and grandkids would be there. I hadn't seen my grandchildren in weeks because Linda had been making excuses about everyone being busy, so I jumped at the chance. When I arrived, something felt off immediately. The house was too quiet. No grandkids running around, no sound of cooking from the kitchen. Linda and her husband Greg were there, along with David and his wife Susan. Robert sat on the couch looking uncomfortable. "Where are the kids?" I asked. "They had other plans," Linda said smoothly. "Come sit down, Mom. We need to talk about something important." They'd brought in a social worker, a woman named Karen with a kind face and a clipboard. She started asking me questions, gentle at first, then more probing. What year was it? Who was the president? Could I count backward from 100 by sevens? I felt like I was being ambushed, evaluated, judged. My own children had set a trap for me. "What is this?" I demanded, standing up. "I'm leaving." "Mom, please." David stood as well, blocking my path to the door. "We just need you to listen. We've been to a lawyer. We have concerns about your capacity to make decisions. We're filing for guardianship." The word hit me like a physical blow. Guardianship. They wanted to take away my legal rights, my autonomy, my freedom to make my own decisions. "You can't do this," I whispered. Linda's face was stern now. The concerned daughter act dropped. "We can, and we are. It's for your own good. We've already found a place for you at Meadowbrook. You'll be moved in by the end of the week." I looked at my 3 children, these people I'd sacrificed everything for, and saw strangers. Calculating strangers who were taking my life away from me. I left that house in a daze, drove home with tears streaming down my face. And then I did something I should have done weeks earlier. I called my sister Patricia. Patricia came over within an hour. She's 2 years older than me, sharper than a tack, and doesn't suffer fools. She'd been a paralegal for 30 years before retiring. When she walked in and saw my face, she wrapped me in a hug that I desperately needed. "Tell me everything," she said, and I did. When I finished, she sat perfectly still. I could see her mind working, processing. Then she asked the question that would change everything. Evelyn, have you looked at your finances lately? Your actual accounts, not just what Linda tells you? My heart started pounding. Linda's been helping me with some of the paperwork. She said it would be easier if she could access my accounts online to help me pay bills and manage things. Why? Patricia's expression shifted into something I'd never seen before. Fear mixed with fury. Please tell me you didn't give her power of attorney. Not yet. She's been pushing me to sign papers, but I kept putting it off. Something didn't feel right about it. She'd get this look in her eyes when I'd say I needed more time to review them. We need to check your accounts, right now, every single one. My hands were shaking as I opened my laptop. Patricia pulled up a chair beside me, and we spent the next 3 hours going through everything. My checking accounts, savings, investment accounts, the rental property statements. With each page, each transaction, I felt sicker. Small withdrawals at first. 200 here, 500 there. Amounts I might chalk up to memory lapses or legitimate expenses I'd forgotten about. But then we started seeing the pattern. The amounts got larger, more frequent, and they were always just under the threshold that would trigger automatic alerts from the bank. Someone had done their homework. There, Patricia pointed at the screen, her voice tight. $5,000 transferred out of your savings to this account number. Do you recognize it? I didn't. She copied the number and ran it through a search. It took 15 minutes of digging through my old papers, but we found it. One of Linda's business accounts that I'd written a check 2 years ago for her real estate startup. I'd kept the carbon copy. The room started spinning. My own daughter. We kept digging, found transfers to accounts belonging to David, to Robert. Over the past 6 months, nearly $40,000 had been systematically siphoned from my accounts. The rental property income, which used to be deposited directly into my savings, was now going to an account I'd never authorized. I ran to the bathroom and threw up. When I came back, Patricia had printed everything. Pages and pages of evidence, all laid out on my dining room table in neat chronological order. The paper trail of my children's betrayal. They've been planning this for months, Patricia said quietly. Look at the timing. The withdrawals started right after Linda began visiting you more often. This wasn't opportunistic, Evelyn. This was calculated. I sat down heavily, my legs unable to hold me anymore. The nursing home. They were going to put me in that place so I couldn't see the statements, couldn't access my own accounts. They'd have complete control, and I'd be locked away with everyone thinking I was senile. Not just locked away. Patricia's voice was hard. I'm betting they were going to sell your house too. That's why Linda was so insistent about you moving into Meadowbrook. With you out of the way and power of attorney in hand, they could liquidate everything. Your home, the rental property, all of it. By the time you realized what was happening, if you ever did, it would all be gone. The betrayal hit me in waves. These were my babies, the children I'd held when they were sick, whose skinned knees I'd bandaged, who I'd stayed up with all night when they had nightmares. I'd given them everything, including apparently the roadmap to rob me blind. I looked at Patricia and I couldn't stop the tears anymore. How could they do this? I'm their mother. I know, honey. She grabbed my hand. I know, but we're going to fix this. We're going to protect you and make sure they can't take another penny. Patricia looked at me with fire in her eyes. We're going to fight this, but first, we need to protect your assets. Today. She made phone calls. Within 2 hours, I had an appointment with an attorney friend of hers, a woman named Margaret Chen who specialized in elder law. By the end of that day, I'd done several things. First, I'd revoked any informal access Linda had to my accounts and changed all my passwords. Second, I documented every unauthorized transfer with dates and amounts. Third, I'd filed a police report for financial exploitation of an elderly person. Fourth, I'd sent a cease and desist letter to my children's guardianship attorney. And fifth, I'd made a decision that even Patricia thought was extreme. I was going to sell everything and disappear. Evelyn, think about this, Patricia said. You'd be leaving your whole life behind. What life? I asked her. My children have made it clear that they see me as nothing but a bank account with an expiration date. My friends will hear about this guardianship filing and wonder if I really am losing my mind. This house, this town, It's all tainted now. Everything I built was supposed to be for them, and they couldn't even wait until I was dead to take it. Patricia understood. She'd been through her own betrayal when her husband left her after 30 years. Sometimes the only thing left to do is start over. We moved fast. The attorney helped me establish an irrevocable trust for my assets, with Patricia as the trustee. I put my house on the market, the rental property too. I liquidated my investments into accounts my children couldn't touch. I even sold my car, my furniture, anything of value. Linda called repeatedly. I didn't answer. David showed up at my door. I didn't let him in. Robert sent tearful text messages about how they were only trying to help me. I blocked his number. Through the attorney, they were informed that their guardianship petition was being contested, that evidence of financial exploitation had been turned over to the police, and that any further harassment would result in restraining orders. The house sold in 3 weeks. In this market, a well-maintained home in a good school district went fast. I made a healthy profit. That's when I told Patricia my plan. I was moving to Portugal. I'd always wanted to live abroad. When my husband was alive, we'd talked about retiring somewhere warm and beautiful, somewhere our money would stretch further and we could actually enjoy life. We'd never gotten the chance. But I still could. I'd been researching Portugal for years. The Algarve region with its stunning coastline, mild climate, and welcoming expat community. English was widely spoken, the cost of living was reasonable, and Portugal had a special visa program for retirees with sufficient income. My attorney helped me set up the trust so that I'd have monthly income distributed to me overseas. Patricia would manage the trust assets. Everything was legal, protected, and completely out of my children's reach. I booked a one-way ticket to Faro, Portugal for June 15th. I didn't tell anyone except Patricia and the attorney. Not my book club friends, not my church group, not even my sweet neighbor Mrs. Henderson who'd lived next door for 20 years. I couldn't risk word getting back to my children. The day before my flight, Linda, David, and Robert showed up at my door together. They'd clearly coordinated this ambush. I watched them from the window, saw Linda's face when she realized there was a "sold" sign in the yard. She started pounding on the door. "Mom, open this door right now. What have you done? You can't sell the house without telling us." But I could. It was my house. And I'd already moved all my personal belongings to a storage unit that would be shipped to Portugal once I found a place to live. I opened the door with the chain still on. "I'm not going to a nursing home. I'm not signing over my rights to you, and I'm not giving you another penny of my money." David pushed forward. "You're sick, Mom. You're not thinking clearly. We're trying to help you." "No," I said clearly. "You're trying to steal from me. I know about the money. All of it. I filed a police report. I've hired an attorney. And I'm leaving." Linda's face twisted into something ugly. "You ungrateful, selfish woman. After everything we've done for you, you're going to regret this." "The only thing I regret," I said, "is wasting my life on children who see me as nothing but an inheritance to claim early." I closed the door. They stood outside yelling for another 10 minutes before they finally left. The next morning, Patricia drove me to the airport. We both cried at the security gate. She was the only family I had left that I trusted. "Go live your life," she told me. "Really live it. You've earned it." I boarded that plane feeling lighter than I had in years. Portugal was everything I'd hoped it would be and more. When the plane began its descent into Faro, I pressed my face to the window like a child and watched the coastline come into view. Golden cliffs, turquoise water, white buildings with terracotta roofs climbing up hillsides. It looked like a painting, like something from a dream I'd forgotten I had. I stepped off that plane into air that smelled like salt and sunshine, and something in my chest loosened, something that had been clenched tight for 30 years. I stayed in a small hotel in Faro for 2 weeks while I explored. Every morning I'd wake up, have a coffee and pastel de nata at a cafe, and just walk. No agenda, no obligations, nobody expecting anything from me. I'd wander through markets where vendors sold fresh fish and bright produce. I'd sit in churches hundreds of years old and just be still. I'd watch the sun set over the water and realize that for the first time in decades, I wasn't worrying about anyone but myself. It felt strange, foreign, wonderful. I looked at properties in several towns, Tavira with its Roman bridge, Albufeira with its bustling beach scene. But when I got to Lagos, I knew I was home. There was something about this town, with its medieval walls and hidden beaches, its mix of locals and expats, its authentic Portuguese feel that hadn't been completely overtaken by tourism. I found an apartment on my third day in Lagos. It was on the second floor of a traditional building on a quiet street just off the main plaza. The landlord, a kind man named João, who spoke perfect English, showed me around. 2 bedrooms with high ceilings and crown molding, tall windows that let in streams of golden light, a modern kitchen with blue and white tiles, and the balcony, oh, the balcony. It overlooked a small plaza with a fountain where people gathered in the evenings. I could see a slice of the harbor in the distance. The rent is 650 euros per month, João said, utilities included. 650 euros, less than $800. My mortgage in Cleveland had been $2,200. I almost laughed. I'll take it, I said. I signed the lease that afternoon, bought simple furniture from local shops, a bed, a couch, a small dining table. Nothing fancy. Everything felt temporary and permanent all at once, like I was playing house in someone else's life. But it was my life. Finally. I spent my first week just settling in, learning the neighborhood, finding the best bakery, the market with the friendliest vendors, the cafe with the strongest coffee. I bought fresh flowers for my kitchen counter, hung curtains, set up a little corner by the window where I could paint. I joined a local expat book club that met twice a month at a wine bar near the marina. The members were mostly women my age or older, Americans, Canadians, Brits, even an Australian named Grace, who'd moved to Lagos after her husband died, just like me. We'd bonded immediately over being widows who'd discovered life wasn't over just because our husbands had died. I spent 10 years being the grieving widow, Grace told me over wine one evening. Then I woke up and realized I was 68, and I'd been so busy being sad that I'd forgotten to live. So I sold everything and moved here. Best decision I ever made. I understood completely. I enrolled in Portuguese lessons at a community center. Twice a week, I'd sit in a classroom with other foreigners, stumbling over verb conjugations and pronunciation. Our teacher, a patient woman named Catarina, would smile encouragingly every time I butchered another word. Muito bem, Evelyn, she'd say. Very good, even when it wasn't. I started painting again, something I hadn't done since college. I'd set up my easel on the balcony in the mornings and paint the plaza, the buildings, the light. I wasn't good, but I didn't need to be. It was just for me. I walked to the beach almost every day. The Praia Dona Ana with its dramatic cliffs and grottos, the Meia Praia, a long stretch of golden sand perfect for long walks. I'd roll my pants up and walk in the surf, let the Atlantic wash over my feet, and think about how far I'd come. Not just in miles, but in everything else. For the first time since Tom died 30 years ago, I felt free. Free from obligation, from guilt, from the constant weight of other people's needs pressing down on me. I was just Evelyn, not Mom, not Grandma, not the woman who would fix everything, bail everyone out, sacrifice herself. Just Evelyn, and I was learning to like her. Patricia and I video chatted weekly. She sent me updates on the legal situation back home. The police investigation into my children's financial exploitation was ongoing. The guardianship petition had been dismissed once the judge saw the evidence of their theft and my clear competency. My children had hired a lawyer to fight the allegations, but the paper trail didn't lie. They're claiming they were just helping you manage your money and you got confused about giving permission, Patricia told me, but the timestamps and amounts tell a different story. Let them claim whatever they want, I said. I'm done. And I was. I'd blocked their numbers, changed my email. They had no way to contact me. For 6 months, I lived in blissful silence until the day Patricia called with news. They know where you are, she said, her voice tight. Linda hired a private investigator. They have your address in Lagos. My stomach dropped. How? Paper trail from the visa application, probably. Or maybe someone from your old book club mentioned it. Does it matter? They know. 2 days later, my phone rang from a Gizi number I didn't recognize. Portuguese country code. I debated not answering, but curiosity won. Hello? Mom, Linda's voice tight and controlled. We need to talk. I should have hung up, but years of conditioning, of being the mother who always picked up, always listened, always helped, made me hesitate. How did you get this number? That doesn't matter. What matters is that you've lost your mind, running off to Portugal like some kind of irresponsible teenager. Do you have any idea what you've done to this family? The audacity of it took my breath away. What I've done? David lost his job last month. He needed help, and you were nowhere to be found. Robert's going through a divorce and needs money for legal fees. And I had to take out a second mortgage because the income from your rental property stopped when you sold it. We're your children, Mom. You're supposed to help us. I walked out onto my balcony, looked at the Portuguese sky, and felt something cold and clear settle over me. Linda, let me make something very clear. You and your brothers stole from me. You tried to have me declared incompetent so you could steal more. You were willing to lock me away in a facility, take away my freedom, my dignity, my autonomy, all so you could get your hands on my money. And now you're calling me in the country where I've finally found peace to tell me I'm supposed to help you? We're your children, she was shouting now. You're supposed to take care of us. That's what mothers do. I did take care of you. For your entire lives. I worked myself to exhaustion to put you through college. I helped each of you with down payments on houses. I've bailed Robert out financially more times than I can count. I babysat your children, Linda, every week for years so you could build your career. I gave and gave and gave, and the moment you thought I was vulnerable, you tried to rob me blind. That's not... We were trying to help manage your money because you were getting confused. Stop lying. My voice was steel. I have documentation of every unauthorized transfer. The police have it. My attorney has it. You can't gaslight me anymore. There was silence on the other end. Then David's voice. He must have been on the call the whole time. Mom, please, I really do need help. I'm behind on my mortgage. I could lose the house, the kids. Your kids are not my responsibility. They're yours. You're a grown man, David. You're 45 years old. Figure it out. But you have money. Robert's voice now, whiny like he was still 12. You sold everything. You must have hundreds of thousands. You're living in Portugal while we're struggling here. How is that fair? I laughed, and it wasn't a kind sound. Fair? You want to talk about fair? I'm 72 years old, Robert. I earned this money through decades of hard work. I saved it, invested it, sacrificed for it. It's mine. And after what you three tried to do to me, you're lucky I'm not pressing charges. My attorney advised me that I have grounds to pursue full restitution plus damages. You wouldn't dare. Linda again, her voice venomous. If you do that, you'll never see your grandchildren again. The threat hung in the air, the cruelest weapon she could use. Linda, I said softly, I haven't seen my grandchildren in almost a year. You've been keeping them from me since all this started. You've already taken them away. You're just making the threat explicit now. And honestly, I feel sorry for them, growing up with parents who taught them that love is transactional, that family is just about money, that it's acceptable to exploit the vulnerable. You're raising them to be just like you. I heard her sharp intake of breath. Here's what's going to happen, I continued. You're going to hang up this phone. You're going to stop looking for ways to contact me. You're going to accept that I don't owe you anything. Not my money, not my time, not my forgiveness. I'm going to live the rest of my life in peace, in a place I love, doing things that make me happy. And you three are going to have to figure out how to be adults without Mommy's bank account to bail you out. Mom, David started, but I cut him off. I want you to understand something. The mother you knew, the woman who would do anything for her children, who would sacrifice everything to make you happy. She died the day you tried to put her in a nursing home to steal her inheritance. I'm someone new now, someone who finally puts herself first, and I like this version of me a lot better. You're going to die alone, Linda hissed, old and alone in a foreign country with no family. Better alone with dignity, I said, than surrounded by vultures waiting for me to die. Goodbye, Linda. Goodbye, David. Goodbye, Robert. Don't call again. I hung up, blocked the number, and then I did something I hadn't done in front of my children since their father's funeral. I cried, but these weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of release, of grief for what I'd thought I had, and relief for what I'd escaped. I cried for the mother I'd been, who'd believed that unconditional love and sacrifice would create unconditional love in return. I cried for the years I'd wasted feeling guilty for wanting anything for myself. I cried for the grandmother I'd never be to Emma, Sophia, and Jackson. And I cried because even after everything, part of me still loved them. The them they could have been. The them I'd raised them to be. When the tears stopped, I splashed cold water on my face and made myself a cup of Portuguese coffee, strong and sweet. I carried it out to my balcony and watched the evening unfold in the plaza below. A young couple with a baby, an old man feeding pigeons, teenagers laughing over ice cream, life continuing, simple and beautiful and uncomplicated. My phone buzzed. Patricia, you okay? Linda called me screaming about how you're abandoning the family and you're going to die alone and regret everything. I typed back, I'm perfect. Tell her to lose your number too. Her response came immediately. Already did. Love you, sis. Proud of you. Those 4 words, proud of you, made me cry again. But these tears were different, lighter somehow. That evening, I met my book club friends at our favorite restaurant. We ate grilled sardines and drank Vinho Verde and argued passionately about the ending of the book we'd just finished. Nobody asked me for money. Nobody questioned my competence. Nobody wanted anything from me except my thoughts and my company. Maria, a retired teacher from Boston, raised her glass. To Portugal. To second chances, added James, a widower from London. To freedom, I said, and we all drank. Walking home that night along the cobblestone streets, I thought about the life I'd left behind and the life I'd found. About how sometimes the people who should protect you are the ones you need protecting from. About how it's never too late to save yourself. I thought about my children and whether they'd ever understand what they'd really lost. Not my money, me. But that was their lesson to learn, not mine to teach anymore.